Okay, so I am here speaking of some work that Odell has been doing in Peru and Bogota, Colombia. So Odell is a firm that is in Richmond, Virginia and Charlotte, North Carolina, and the two firms work in tandem on every project that we do. So we do a lot of work with BIM 360, A360. We do a lot of cloud collaboration, and it's become integrated into every day of our lives. So we troubleshoot it a lot. We use a lot of different techniques about how to archive files, how to manage files, how to manage versioning, and all of that good stuff. So in the past few months, we have been fortunate enough to receive a commission to do the design work on the Bogota Tower, which is scheduled at the time to be one of the tallest buildings in the Eastern Hemisphere. I'm going to rephrase, the tallest building in the Eastern Hemisphere. So it's pretty exciting. Not something that we saw coming, but we're all really excited about being a part of it. It's metric. That always makes it a challenge. But what we're going to talk about today is a project with a group called AUNA. It's in Lima, Peru. So it's a same group of people that have a series of different interests throughout Middle America. And half of the project team is in the United States. It's part of the Odell team. And the other half of the project team are local architects and engineers that are in Peru. And we're all working simultaneously on models. We're not splitting the work like some works in the day and the other work in the evening, which we've done that before. But this, we're all working simultaneously. And groups from the Odell offices go down to Peru on a regular basis to make sure we have enough face time. But for the most part, it is a cloud collaborative environment. The project itself began in schematics as it's an addition to an existing hospital. And so we began the schematic drive in 3D. So the whole process has been in 3 dimensions. It's all been a BIM-based collaborative process. Working it onto the site, where it goes on the site. The goals of this presentation is not about the design of the project. It's about the integrated delivery that we've been managing through a cloud platform. So in order to attain success, we must have an integrated project team. That is the only way we're going to find success in these projects. So again, half in the States, half in Peru, 2 different languages, 1 model, 1 collaboration platform. So how are we doing this? We're doing this in multiple ways. And we're doing this through SharePoint. We're doing this through BIM 360. We're doing this through the Revit Viewer platform that Autodesk has provided us. We're doing this with Bluebeam. So those are our 4 main tools. That's really almost all the tools we need to do the collaboration. One of the goals that I always bring, I've been the director of BIM at Odell for about 6 years. And before that, I was BIM guru at another large firm, and before that, another BIM guru. And the thing that I've learned is, if you can do it in a simple way, you do it in a simple way. Like, you never go overboard, because you do it simple here, then you do it simple here, then you do it simple here. And the next thing you know, you have this really complex system, but every step is really simple. So we talk about the BIM execution plan. And we talk about it in terms of how it fits in with the whole scheme of things. And it's typically from a contractor's perspective. Oh no. There we go. Something weird with the PowerPoint there. We talk about it from the contractor's perspective. And when you talk about a BIM execution plan from a contractor's perspective, you talk about the necessity of it. It is a necessary file, because they're getting file types from all kinds of different places. They have to bring them together. They have to link them together. They have to make it work together. So all of that takes a lot of organization. And that's what a BIM execution plan is about. It's about how to organize your work, to collaborate with disparate teams. So what are we doing right now? We're collaborating with disparate teams, but not in terms of a contractor's approach, but in terms of a design-based approach. We have consistent file types. They're Revit files, they're PDFs, right? We have some CAD files of existing conditions. We have drawing development, and we have to obtain a building permit. So that's something contractors don't have to do. So that's one of the main differences between an architect's execution plan and a contractor's. the contractor doesn't have to create drawings in the way that we do. And so when we create drawings, daggone PDF, I got to click a bunch of times. We have very specific challenges as to what we have to attend to when we're organizing our work. And that's what a BIM execution plan is about. We have to pull things out of the ether. There's nothing before there is an architect, right? We have to give presentations. And in order to give a presentation to a client, you have to have a high level of detail. Like level of development, God, does that even apply to design? Level of detail, sure enough, does. You have to have a high level of detail because you don't want that client to get caught up in that handrail detail that you pulled offline that has nothing to do with everything else. But now all they can do is focus on that handrail that's ugly, right? And so we have to model to this high level. That is our challenge, right? And then we have to do all of this, and we have to get drawings. So this presentation isn't really as much about what is a architect's BIM execution plan as it is why we need one. We take these models. We are the grand collaborator or the grand coordinator. We have to coordinate everyone's work, right? We get these models. They're all Revit models. We make sure they link together well, yada, yada, yada. That's all good. But then we have to make drawings out of them. And then we're expected to put data into them, to bring in the information, to use the open standards, to do all this. And it puts this heavy pressure that is simultaneous with the pressure to create drawings. We talk about a data ecosystem, that if you get the data in, you start to build the data ecosystem, and you can return the drawings back to the facility team, and they can bring them back into their repository, and then they can give them back to you, and won't it be great when you start a project with those brand new files? Yes, it all will be, but we still have to create drawings, right? So our challenge is very enormous. And if you look at where the pressures lie about what an architect has to do, the amount of time that we spend in the process is longer than the contractors, is maybe, I don't know, according to this diagram, it's longer than the facilities, but that's only dependent on all those other things of where money comes from and all that stuff. But think about how much information goes on before the contractor's BIM execution plan takes place. The planning, the multiple design options, the redesign, the re-redesign, all of that stuff that gets put into a Revit model that's decided on by interns, by young modelers, by project architects who are trying their best to also support their client. That's a lot of time where there is no industry standard execution plan written. Penn State wrote some great ones, but it's all very heavy-handed on the contractor's side. You start talking about front-loading and how you want to front-load. But if you start looking at these two diagrams, let's see if this actually works. It does. Look at these two red dots. This front-loading diagram is dependent, this diagram, not all do, but this one does. It's dependent on you as the architect receiving more information at the beginning of the project than in a non-BIM project. So the only way to receive more information is to get more information from your owner, which is dependent on the life cycle, which is not existent in very many places right now. So we're kind of all flabbergasted about how to actually do this. So what is the need? What needs to actually go in to a BIM execution plan for architects? If this document is so needed to make all this work, what would go in it? What would go into an architect's BIM execution plan? Did this just turn off? No, it didn't. Okay. So, you know, the industry standard at the beginning was, well, you have a design model, and then you turn that model over to the contractor, and they send it out to all their subs, and then the subs send it back, and then it becomes a record model, and that's BIM. Bada bing. But the reason we're here today is we know it's not that simple. You know, it's just not that simple. Oh, poo. There we go. So the BIM Guide for Owners from the National Institute of Building Sciences redid that diagram to look like this. You got your design intent model that then feeds into your construction model that then becomes, the construction model becomes as-built models, the design intent model becomes record models, the as-built model feeds back to the record modeling, and those two then become the O&M manuals, and data is inserted in some way as well. They describe it much further, and if you're really interested in it, go to that document and read it, right? But what they're saying is it's much more elaborate than bada bing, bada boom, right? But even if you look at this, the design intent model bar, if you just want to talk about diagramming, is longer than the other two bars. So where's the BIM execution plan for the design intent model, and what would go in it? It takes a long time to create that model for the contractor to use. So the old adage, you begin with the end in mind. Like, if we're going to design a document for architects to use to make an industry standard for what a design intent model is to make all of our lives easier, because we can all agree on it, right? But what are we going to do? Let's begin with the end in mind. We'll use pole planning. Everybody in this room most likely knows what pole planning is. And the PDF is being funny. But is the end the pre-construction phase? Is that what we plan for? Is the end facilities management? Is that what we plan for? Is the end permit drawings? Is that what we plan for? There is actually no answer to that. All of it could be the end. And that's where the problem is with the architect's BIM execution plan, is that projects define what the end is. So if you're going to have a document that's going to define this very obtuse process, you know, can it be a one-hit wonder that you have one document that supports multifamily and one document that also supports healthcare? Probably not, but maybe, right? You know, we all have to hit drawing sets. So you go to these TED Talks, or you listen to these TED Talks, and they always talk, what's your core value? What's the core value? So what's your core value that you need in a BIM execution plan for design? You need to know, I don't know why this is being so funny, but it is. You need to know how to do your permit sets. That's one thing. You have to attend to each one of these. So let's start with permit sets. So you have to know what you need, the core thing you need out of your Revit model. You need to know your linking structure. You need to manage your visibility control between links. It's not appropriate to open up other people's models. So you have to manage visibility through the link. Permit sets are a legal formality right now. Like, at some point we can build without a permit set, but the requirement is not waning. It's there, and it's going to be there for a while until we can officially stamp a model and jurisdictions can review a model. We're going to be creating drawings. So this is something that's very unique to the design process that's not going away. So we have to attend to it. It'd be much better if it just went. So what are your model control strategies? You can have global controls. You can have view-specific controls. So these are the things that you can put in an architect's BIM execution plan. So what are these strategies for model control? So I'm going to open up the one that we're doing with Auna if I have time. So I'm going to try to go fast with this, so I do have time. I've got 10 more minutes. You can bake in the lessons learned that you've had from past projects into your architect's BIM execution plan. And so you hand it to a new team, and you say, here's the BIM execution plan. It's your template one. This is one you need to use. And you have baked in all of the lessons learned. Here are your strategies for view control. Your global controls would be how to manage your work sets, how to manage your view templates, your view-specific controls. I guess those would be your view templates, but I lost track there. Your view-specific controls would be how to manage view by view by view. Filters for your views, your view templates. Your global controls would be your work sets, your design options, your phases. All of these things. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. All of these things can be built into the document, so when the team gets it, they don't have to start from scratch, right? So your linking strategies, that is one of the hardest things to decide upon when you're starting a project. How am I going to link this up? Do I use one model? Do I use two models? If I use 2 models, how am I going to split it? Am I going to do shell and core and floor by floor? Am I going to do new construction and existing construction? And these decisions, that decision right there, lasts through the life of the project. If the project goes for 1.5 years, gets put on the shelf and picked back up by another team 2 years later, that new team has to deal with the first team's decisions. And they could have been bad decisions. But if there's an execution plan that they can follow, they can say, you can have a menu item, like, okay, I'm going to choose the one model strategy for this one. I'm going to choose the 2 model strategy. And you always have kind of a place to go to choose things, so things become standardized. You know, BIM and IT, they kind of exist in very similar worlds. And IT is all about control. You want to control everything, because then you know where the problems lie. And the same thing kind of exists for BIM. You want to control everything so you know where the problems lie, but in the world of design, you have to control it with flexibility. It's like putting bumpers up when you're bowling, right? Just give people a thing to aim for and give them guidelines and let them go at it. Because architects and engineers are adults, and they're going to make the decisions that are best for the project, independent of what your standards say. So have your linking strategies for what people choose from. Have a standard one. Understand that your owners might require a very specific linking strategy for their check-in and check-out procedures. Many separated out floor by floor, so they can give architect A, floor 1, and architect B, floor 3, and they can get those models back and feed them back into their facility model with ease. You have to understand that if you get this kind of linking structure, you immediately know that the owner has very specific requirements, and you should go hunt them down, because most likely they're fairly pragmatic and they'll make your life easier. You know, if you're going to have, this is so funny, I have to click each one little thing. If you're going to have the owner strategy where you have floors linked in together, you can't do that as well for MEP because it's one big calculator of a model, but you might have a permit going out for the shell and core, you might have a permit going out for the ground level tenant and a permit going out for the 4th floor tenant, all at different schedules. And so these are all different sets of drawings. These are all different permit drawings. So another linking strategy is, all right, how am I permitting this thing? I'm going to link everything by permit. It's another linking strategy you can bake into your project execution plan. Are you using Collaborate for Revit? Yes, no. If you are, who's the admin? Put it into your BIM execution plan. Who should you call to get invited? Who's the admin? What's the process for that? And are you collecting data? What kind of data are you collecting? Where should it live? Basically, I'm marching out what the table of contents of a BIM execution plan should be. So I'm going to move on to pass this pretty quickly so I can open up the one. But before I go too far into it, one other thing we all have to remember when we're writing this document, because without a doubt we should be writing this document as an industry group, is we are providing a service and not a product. And that the model that we're creating is an instrument of our service. It does not have to be perfect. It is design intent. It is to support the services we're providing our owner. And a lot of times when you get the idea that you're going to standardize and control it all, you start to think of it as a product, and you start to think of it as perfection. And that's just a thing that we all have to keep in the back of our mind that that's not what it is. So, what is a BIM execution plan? It's something that can help you with your scope, schedule, and budget. It's something that can standardize your process a little bit more so you spend less time worried and more time providing your design services. You know, this is a great diagram of the 2D CAD workflow and the promised BIM workflow. This is what happens so many times, where you hit a moment and you're like, I can do this, and you hit this moment and you panic. And you just go crazy, right? And all of a sudden, all this time is wasted. And the principals are leaving the office a little embarrassed because they know their interns are going to be there all night long trying to make this work. And it's a scary situation. So how can you bring it back down to an idealized BIM? You can bring it back down with standards. You can bring it back down with a standardized process. This is something the industry needs to help us with. Creating a standardized BIM execution plan is a very important next step in the development of BIM in the industry. I have one that I threw together for my firm because we needed it. Is it official? It is for my firm. Is it official across the board? I'm only one person, right? But the goal is to templatize our work so that we don't have that panic moment. And we haven't. We've had really great success. I don't know, with a particular organization down in Orlando. A lot of great success with IPD down there. A lot of great success internationally. And our two firms, our one firm with our two offices, we work seamlessly together because we all have invested in the same set of standards and the same processes because we all, as a group, created this BIM execution plan. So let me see if I can open it up without the computer freaking out, because it freaked out earlier, if you guys saw. Let's see here. Let's see. Wrong one. There we go. So I'm going to use... So our BIM execution plan starts out with a title. Come on now. No, it is freaking out. There we go. So we go to our table of contents, which it's not showing up on the screen. Is it going to work? All right, I'm just going to have to talk you guys through this. It's only a Word file, so hopefully this will work, but I don't feel like sitting around fidgeting with all this in front of you guys. So we have sections A through O. It starts with our project information, which is the pretty boring stuff, right? We're working on integrating this with our Revit start pages. So most of the Revit files that I open these days have a Revit start page where you open it up and the idea is that you're going to share all this BIM information on there, what you modeled last. Very rarely do I see one actually in use. It's a great idea, but is it being used? He told me he would do that, and I told him I was going to freak out when he did. So I'm taking the project information, the first few sections, and putting them in the Revit file so that we can work really well together between our Revit and our project execution plan. I go through the BIM roles and responsibilities. I go through the model types, and then I get into what our deliverables are. And I very clearly state what the deliverables are for the modeling. You have your permit sets, and then you have your contractor's model, and the deliverables just must be very clearly laid out. In the Penn State project execution plan, there are BIM goals that you can go by. There are design authoring, there are site investigations. There's about 13 or 14 of them, if I remember correctly. And I have a chart in there that you can just mark off which ones you're supposed to be doing. It just kind of helps everybody remember like what the goal is. The most important part of this is the section G, design collaboration. That's when I start to go through how we're going to handle SharePoint. So let me go ahead and open up that one. Oh, but it's not going to show up. That's such a shame. So we have a SharePoint site that we utilize with our UNA project. And if it was showing up, that'd be great. We have an image of where we are with the project. We have what the weather is. We have our calendar. And we have a few folders that we're sharing between the project team. We have a folder that is for the various record submittals. We have a folder that is for just the owner's information. And we have a folder that is for all of the team information, to share the team information back and forth. We have a few different groups that we've selected, so anytime somebody needs to have access to something, we put them in the group that they're in, and they have access to all the folders. In each of the folders, nothing is showing up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of winging it.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and get him plugged in, I think.
Okay.
We have a little wonky thing with that.
Okay, here you go.
And you can just wrap up.
Okay. So any which way, we will move over, but writing down how we're going to do the SharePoint, writing down how we're going to do the BIM 360, getting to what the core values of your Revit file are, how you're going, and that is how you're going to manage your visibilities, how you're going to manage your links, how you're going to work with your consultants at the fundamental level of how you're going to get those drawing sets together. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.